Cameraman, an original superhero story about a cameraman whose job is to film movies on alien planets, and ultimately save the art of cinema on Earth from the clutches of corporations and AI. Today, I'm going to bring you inside the first issue, take a closer look at some of the most important scenes, get to know a little bit more about the characters, and hopefully give you a better idea of where writer Andrew Lehman and I are headed with the story. And by the end of this video, you'll have a much better idea of how Cameraman, the first filmmaking superhero, came to be. Be warned, there are some spoilers ahead. If you want to check out the full comic for yourself, it's available on my website digitally and physically. We open on a presentation taking place at Immortal Studios, where a man named Lorik makes a big claim in a room full of onlooking board members. In this case, Immortal Studios is the top media company like a Sony Pictures or 20th Century Fox or even Disney. We can assume that AI has been making movies for these studios for a long time now. Lorik is suggesting that audience demands are shifting and that if they just greenlight his next project, he can save them from cinema's imminent decline. They ultimately agree to let him do this, but of course warning him that if his project underperforms, his career will be over for good. Given that Immortal Studios has historically found success in their superhero films, they demand that the first film in this initiative is in the superhero genre. And we get a closer look at Lorik's glowing goggles. He seems fairly certain he knows where to find this superhero. In his mind, the success of this project could begin to heal years of damage done to the filmmaking industry. Several months later, we cut to the Immortal Studios backlot, where one of the staff is calling names, and we're introduced to the wide-eyed Cameron Maddox, as he, at no fault of his own, arrives late to the briefing that Lorik is giving to the film crew, where Lorik elaborates a little more on what this project is going to be, a movie that captures the origin of the next great superhero live. Cameron at this point is so entranced in what's happening that one of the robots transporting equipment just absolutely runs into him, causing a bigger scene than he probably would have liked. But he was almost right on cue, because after Lorik introduces the twins and green screen, he points out that Cam is the crew's new cameraman. Now, it does seem like Cam was thrown into this project a little last minute. He's a little unsure exactly how prepared he's supposed to be for this shoot, as everything about the project has been extremely tight-lipped. No one knows that Immortal Studios is funding a project like this. But if there's one thing that Cam should have known, is that Lorik is a famous director, well known for his tight-gripped vision and strict order of business. He quickly begins laying down some ground rules. Simply don't interact with the cast by any means, don't enter his office under any condition, and follow his rules. Lorik finishes up the meeting as the team prepares for some sort of departure. Cam is absolutely mortified and walks by himself through the lot until he notices a green cloaked figure and is immediately bombarded by two other crew members, Pyro and Coria Riggs, the stunt twins. Now, they're already suited up and have been training for a film like this for a while. They immediately take advantage of the seniority and go ahead and mess with him a little bit. And just to make things a little bit more sour, he receives a text from his mom asking how his first day is going. So this is all going pretty poorly for him so far, but the big question now we have is, how did Cam get there, and why does Lorik want him for this job? Well, we find out that Cam has actually been to film school, and that Lorik has seen his student films. He acknowledges that there's room for improvement, but sees the potential, given that Cam's uncle, Kyle Maddox, was formerly Lorik's longtime collaborator and camera operator. So it's clear that Cam has some big shoes to fill. So what does he do? He goes and calls Kyle, who is clearly in the middle of something else, wearing a diving suit that might look kind of familiar if you've seen some of my other comics. Kyle provides some good insight here for Cam, assuring him that Lorik has always been like this. Cam has worked a film set multiple times. Uncle Kyle has all of the confidence in him and knows his dad would be proud of him too. It also sounds like Cam's mom is getting pretty nervous. It must have also reached out to Kyle, so he encourages Cam to, before he goes off the grid, reply to his mom. So he does, and for the first time, we can see this giant Kirby-inspired projector that has now been activated, powered from a mysterious source that will allow Lorik and his crew to travel wherever they need to film this superhero movie. The movie they're going to shoot takes place on a planet called Marivel, 7 galaxies away from Earth. And upon taking his first steps onto the planet, Lorik just pops out of nowhere and hands Cam the helmet he will be using to capture the film. Now, because Cam was late, and mostly because Lorik was busy, there wasn't really any time to become familiar with this state-of-the-art equipment. Nothing like this helmet exists in Cam's world, but once he puts it on, he finds it immediately calibrating to his body and familiarizes himself with the settings. This is the first time we see Cam suit up as the cameraman. For their first scene, we can see that the crew has moved a little bit further away from the city to a field where there is a couple eating a picnic. Lorik gets ready to call action on the first scene as a flaming escape pod enters the frame. Now this is a full circle moment for Cam. He's been watching Immortal Studios films ever since he was a kid. He's gone from experiencing his first movies as a kid to studying Lorik and other filmmakers like him in actual film school to getting a job at Immortal Studios in a time where it otherwise would have been impossible. Lorik calls action, so we get to see the results of that crash. And fast forward a few years to meeting a young Parker, who we quickly find is the subject of this film. These film reels we see throughout the comic represent footage captured by Cameraman's helmet. Now would be a good time to mention that time passes very differently on Marivel, so Lorik and the crew might be there for years or decades in Marivel time, but back on Earth it could be a week. If you couldn't tell already, Parker's life shares a lot of similarities with other superhero characters that you might be familiar with. Let me know if you can pick out exactly which characters we might be referencing here. It's undeniable that after reading this page, Parker is the perfect candidate on Marivel for a superhero story. It's also important to note that this stuff is happening for real, and that for every one of Parker's major life events, Cam, Lorik, and the crew are all doing their part. His life captured for Earth Entertainment. Many Marivel days later, Pyro and Korea as the stunt twins are getting kinda antsy. They don't know what's going to happen, and up until this point, things have been less than exciting. Too romantic and depressing. Pyro, being an expert in, well, pyrotechnics, has a significant appetite for explosions, but the director has something else in mind. He tells the twins that they will be playing the role of the bullies in the next scene. They are perfectly happy to go in and start roughing up the main character. Their suits allow them to take the form of any preset model the studio has prepared. In this case, Parker's school bullies. They immediately ambush Parker, who's in the middle of a date with Tara Jade, and just as things seem to be going well, Cam spots something out of the corner of his eye. A blindingly bright comet is spiraling toward Marivel, the very coordinates of their filming location. The crew members, on the other hand, are taking the hint and getting out of there. And Cam is frozen, unsure of whether or not he's supposed to keep filming or also evacuate. Not to mention the fact that in mere seconds, that blue comet could totally derail the entire film. Director Lorik seems completely unaffected and tells Cam to get up in drone mode and film the scene from above. The twins only manage to grab Tara Jade, just as Cam tries to stabilize himself in position. At the order of director Lorik, Cam watches as Parker braces for impact. Cam is there to witness what seems to be the death and total obliteration of Parker. Nobody can believe what just happened. And before things could get worse, the twins run away. Was any of this part of the movie? Were those Marivel years of filming all for nothing? We're immediately thrown into something not captured by cameras. A moment in time gone by, a flashback of Parker's very own. His parents saying goodbye to him as they send him away to Marivel. Could his life now be over? Or could it be the beginning of something entirely new? You can pick up the entirety of Cameraman #1 digitally or physically on my website. It's a great way to support the channel and allow us to continue making original comics like this in the future. And if you're looking for more from my original superhero universe, watch this video right here.